In this episode, we're going to memoize our World Cup standings calculations so they only run when the underlying data changes. Then we'll clean up the UI and prepare the application for the dynamic rules systems we'll be building next. Whether you followed the series from the beginning or you're jumping in with this episode, let's get started. Now, when we were last in here, what we had done was we had created a standings utility that would calculate the results of all the groupings and teams, etc. in here. I want to first just step back for a quick second before we do the UI portion of this and acknowledge that in the development process, there are sometimes bugs. And I am going to show you a bug that I created actually in episode 1. And I realized it because it was continuously executing. Hold on, I'll show it to you directly here in useAsync right here. So if you'll recall back then, we had a use effect that goes and executes this function based on dependencies passed in. Kudos to you if you discovered it before me. But what was happening was these dependencies determine when this code is executed. And so I'm passing this in as an array. I don't need to put it inside an array. And so what was happening was, since this is an array inside an array, it's a new object address in memory every single time. So it was executing continuously. So if you came across that by discovery, apologies, but that's the life of deving, right? So if you'll remove this bracket here, it's in each one of my commits to Git for this project. So I have some rectifying to do sort of on those, and I haven't done that yet, but I will get to doing that at some point. But anyway, correct that, remove those, and it should only execute once as we would have expected. The next thing I want to do is I want to cover something, a potential refactoring that I have to do just a little bit on this guy here, on our calc standings. What happened was, as I was beginning to look at this and prep for this episode, what we want to do in here is we want to take what standings we get from this util, and we want to provide them to this capsule, kind of like this, right? We want to pass in the standings so that we can pass them down the component hierarchy and display them. What I realized was, and this didn't affect the UI, and this still would have worked, was I was supplying a standings that had only team IDs, and so I couldn't break them down by group. And so if I can't break them down by group, I'm passing all of them in, which would have been fine. Inside the group, we were going to get only the teams for that group because of this, right? We're going to have a group ID that identified them. We'll only pluck them. But it would be plucking from a group of 48 teams in those standings versus only the 4 that I should be passing in, and that didn't feel right to me. So what I want to do now is kind of refactor this, and it's only the top piece that we have to do. I want to refactor this so that we're passing information, including the group ID, so that in this component, we can actually select only the 4 teams that happen to be in that group for each one of these capsules. So as this walks through each group, we're only passing 4 standings teams in instead of 48. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'll leave this here because it really doesn't matter. We're eventually going to need it anyway. I'm going to step over in here. Now, one thing this does do is simplifies things a little bit, because what it's going to do is, since we need group information, and we're going to almost the highest level object. We're not going to the tournament level, but we're going to just one below, which is groups. Groups contains the teams themselves and the matches. So we're just going to input a group array, which simplifies the input a little bit, right? We're going to comment this out right here, right now. Because what we want to do now is, and there are going to be no changes down here at all. It's all going to be right here. We're going to replace this with a little bit more code. So the first things first is we're going to commit to, yes, we still want standings, and we still want the mapping that we had before. That's going to remain the same. The difference is going to be the internals of this. So first things first, what we want to do is, so what we need to do is change the internals here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the groups that we've passed in now, and we're going to call something called flat map. And what flat map basically does is this. It says, hey, the callback that you're creating in here, whatever you return from it, I'm going to reduce the hierarchy by one. So in other words, if we have teams that are in subgroupings of groups, it's going to take those teams and pull them back and put them all on the same level. The other thing we need to do within here, obviously, is we're looping the groups here. We need to go group dot teams dot map, and then something similar here where we have a team, and we are going to return an array of data. Now, the difference here is this. Before we had wins, losses, etc., etc., we're going to need in here, we're going to put team ID, and that would be the team ID, right? And we're going to put, more importantly, the group ID that we were lacking, right? So group ID dot ID. There we go. And what I've forgotten to do in here is, I said it was an array. I don't know why I said this is a tuple. So what we need to do is we need to provide the key first. So the key is going to be team ID. It still will be that, right? And then we need to include this object, right? And I'll explain and clear up as soon as I get this a little bit more organized here. So essentially, hopefully what this is going to tell me is I'm just lacking fields here, right? What's missing? Following team standing. Yeah, I think that's all. So I think if we take, I'm going to, I have over here a listing of these fields. I'm going to copy and paste these in. So we have, so I don't have to retype all those out, right? And there we go. And so we have team.id, and I'll explain this. I know I did a bunch of stuff here. Team.id. There we go. So now what we've done here is we're getting the same result here. We're going to get the same number of standings back that we did before. The difference, however, is that we've now included these two internally within the object. So this format here, where we have a key and then the object itself is required of map, right? It needs a key in here. But we've included now the most important piece of data, which is the group ID, so that we can actually filter on it, right? So that solves that problem. Now, the other issue here that we have is that I eliminated matches. Well, if we're passing the groups in, there's no reason to pass the matches in because we already have the matches within these groups. So let's simplify, the signature of this method to where, you only have to pass in groups. And let's come down here and do the same for matches, although it will be a little bit simpler because what we're going to do is we're going to take the groups and we are going to flat map them as well. And so we're going to do the same thing here, right? And then this callback, however, is going to be a little simpler because all it needs to do is say group dot matches dot map, and then the input is that, and we're going to just return the match, right? So therefore, all we're saying literally here is take all the groups, go find all the matches within these groups, right? So now you have them all stacked neatly. And then you say, and pull them back one level in the hierarchy so that I can have them in one nice list. And so that's what happens here. So that's the only change that essentially needs to be made. And we have a little issue here. Home team does not exist in void. This is usually the indicator of a return of a wrong object or some mismatch between an array and the object itself. So what's going on here? Match is becoming, so it's somewhere in here, because it certainly shouldn't be void, a void or array of type void. Oh, return. So I'm not returning those, so that was the problem. You can see this goes away. Great. So now we've refactored. That's all we have to do. We've refactored the calc standings the way we need to include groups. So now we can actually go to the UI and start building out what we need to pass this in. So we're back at the groups component. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say const standings equals, and we are going to use a new construct, not one that you're probably familiar with, new to this application though. useMemo, and we're going to say inside here, this function, please cache the results from this and only update it when groups change per this dependency array, right? And let's get this pulled in. So there we go. And now what we're going to do is, whoops, this should be standings. Now what we're going to do is we're going to say return our call to calc all standings, and we're going to pass in groups, and that should satisfy that, right? So now we have the standings returning, and it's not liking this because we have an updated group capsule to include the input of standings, and we'll do that in a moment. One small issue that comes up here is this. We want to be able to filter these, right? So we can't just return the standings, because then we'd be doing the same thing that we've done before, right? Which is pass all the standings for the entire tournament into this one group capsule. So we want to make sure that they're limited to only the ones that are specific to this group. So we're going to do that now. Well, we need to create a function in here that this can call and pass in the current group it's dealing with, right? So we're going to create a function called, function called get group standing. Let's just say group standings to make it easy. Group standings, right? And it's going to take in a group ID of type number, right? And then what we're going to do is we're going to take a, let's see, we have the standings there, so we need to take a spread of those standings values. In other words, we're getting the values inside these standings here, because remember, this is a map object. And we're going to filter them. Filter them by the group ID we passed in. So we're going to want to, so this is going to be like for standings, s dot group ID equals group ID. You know what? And this is working off of standings. Let's see here. It doesn't have group ID because I don't think I ever incorporated the interface into a central location so we could access it, did I? I think that's it. Okay, so let's quickly come back here. Sorry about that. Yes. Okay, so I never integrated the team ID number and the group ID number into this, right? But this should actually be in our types. here at the bottom, right? Save, right? And we got to export it, of course. Export it so that it's available outside. Now let's go back in here, and since we removed this, we're going to need to import it. So here we go, we got that. And we'll remove match from earlier since we don't need that one anymore. And we'll delete these commented out inputs. And I never cleaned myself up here, so I will delete this too. Okay, so now back. Okay, so now back in here, and this is still complaining. Oh, yeah, I don't know how I did that, but yeah, so this should be group ID that it's passing to. And let's just say, hey, we want to tell everybody what we're returning, so we'll just to make things clear, we have an array of this, and that team standing is here, just to make sure that we're so TypeScript stays happy with us. Why is it complaining about that? Oh, I'm not returning a value, so I need to return this. There we go. So now we've got this function now that breaks the number of the standings down by grouping, which is what we want. We'll save that, but it's not being used yet. So let's take this and say, and it also requires that input. So we're going to change this to looking at these standings up here to calling this function and passing in the ID of the current group. And by current, I mean when it loops through that current group. Okay, so now we have the groups component done. This is only erroring because this doesn't exist on group capsule. So what we're going to do is we're going to now switch to group capsule and include those standings. So we're going to, we not only include the group in now, but this needs standings. And so we're going to have team standings array, and of course we're going to need we need to reference it there, and then we're going to want to also extract it from the props, right? And so in here, what we need is we need a solo team standing to be passed into the team capsule. So we're in the group capsule, and it loops through the teams of that group, and then for each team, we're going to need a standing here to pass in. So, and then we're probably going to need another function that says, you know, that is the team standing, and we're going to want to pass in the team's ID so that we know what team we're getting. Now, with respect to this function, we're going to have a function called team standing. Whoops, that will take in a team ID number, and then what we're going to want to do is take the standings and do a find, because we want to find one, not filter and get an array of things. And so we're going to do a find s standings equals s dot team ID equals the team ID we just passed in. And we'll want to not forget, like I did last time, and return that. And we'll do a type of team standing just to stay clean. It doesn't like that. Oh, it doesn't like, it could be undefined. Oh, good point. So if, okay, so what we want to do here instead then is this. Constant standing equals this. We want to account for the fact that something couldn't be found, and if it's not found, I would think that we would want to return an empty set. So we're going to return either a standing if it exists, or an empty standing, right? And we haven't created this yet. So what I'm going to do up here is create a quick object called empty standing, and it's going to equal our object team ID 0, group ID 0, and then obviously W0, draw, loss, goals against, goals for, goal diff, and PTS, right? Is that everything? I think it's going to tell me probably I'm missing something. Whoops. What am I missing? Is missing the following properties. Group ID. Oh, yeah. There we go. Oh, it's still complaining. Let's see. P is missing. P. Oh, yes, for played games. P0. There we go. And now this is all accepting. This is great. So now what we've done here is, let me bring this down a little bit. Just kind of format this a little bit. So we're getting the team we need, but if it doesn't exist, we're returning an object that's empty, which is good. So now that'll pass this in. Now we're down to the last object. Let's save this off. It's going to complain. And you'll notice that now, since I implemented the standing input in here, up here, that groups has now cleaned itself up and it's fine. It's not red anymore. So that's good. So now we're moving on to the team capsule. And the team capsule is going to need to take in a standing, as you imagined. Team standing. And so now we have, did I name that? I named it standing. So we'll copy this and we'll apply this here. Pluck that out of there. And now is the easy work, because now we can just take standing and apply it against all of these. So I think, so we're actually literally putting in, I think this is right here. So we're putting in the values of all the calculations we made. So obviously we're going to have this. I may be off a little bit on this. I think this is W, and draw, then loss, then goals for, and goals against, and then goal diff, and then points. So there we go. So now this should show cleanly. And one little thing that I just noticed in here that I never explained, I have a style in here that's hide on phone, and what this does is this creates a responsive design where if you crunch the screen down, it'll hide fields that aren't as necessary, right? You'll just see the team and the points or something like that. So I can probably show you that in a second when I show you what the output of this is. So now we have completed this, and so we should see all the results now on screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this guy and open it back up. Hopefully we'll see stuff. And we're seeing zeros everywhere. I'm wondering if I misordered the back in the group capsule. So admittedly, I had to stop the camera and actually troubleshoot this. And what I found was I had made a mistake way back here. So a couple of mistakes. This was originally like this. So you'll notice there were two changes. I was returning an object for some reason. I don't know why I did that instead of just returning the filtered result of this. So I needed to remove this, and then if you'll notice, I'm setting group ID equal to group ID, not doing a comparison. So that was it. So once I did that, you can see I have results now. So now I have um, all the results in here now. I forgot we probably need to do some sorting on these so that the appropriate guys are at the top spot. So, Switzerland won this group. Switzerland should be up here, and Canada and Bosnia should be fighting it out for the second and third based on um, some additional tiebreakers. So I'm going to need to do sorting on these, but we accomplished what we wanted to, which was to get the results in here. Appreciate you all watching. Let's see. Oh man, I ended up, I think, at or near almost 30 again. I'm going to keep trying to reduce this. But yeah, mission accomplished. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in episode 5.